Hello everyone and welcome to chapter 10. This is going to cover the water-soluble vitamins, which include your B vitamins and vitamin C. These are your learning objectives for the chapter. An overview of the vitamins. Vitamins help regulate most body processes involved in supporting growth and maintaining life. Vitamins differ from energy-yielding nutrients in their structure. Vitamins are individual units. They are not linked together like molecules of glucose or amino acids. As for their function, they do not yield energy. They assist in the release of energy. Many help assist enzymes that participate in the release of energy from carbohydrates, protein, and fat. Food contents. Oftentimes, the vitamins are called micronutrients, so they're not macronutrients. And they're called this because of the amounts required are much smaller. Your vitamins are measured in micrograms or milligrams. It's important that you prevent deficiency of vitamins, but also toxicity. You want to make sure that you are obtaining enough, but not too much. It's critical because both deficiencies and toxicities can be harmful. The vitamins' solubility. Remember, if it's soluble in water, it's hydrophilic, and if it's not soluble in water, it's known as hydrophobic. So your hydrophilic or water-soluble vitamins are your B vitamins and your vitamin C. Water-soluble vitamins are found in the watery parts of foods, are absorbed directly into the blood, travel freely in blood and cells. Your hydrophobic vitamins are your vitamins A, D, E, and K, and these are insoluble in water. Fat-soluble vitamins are found in fats and oils of foods. They must enter the lymphatic system, then the bloodstream. They require transport proteins, and fat-soluble vitamins are held in fatty tissue and liver. Solubility is apparent in the food sources of different vitamins and affects their absorption, transport, storage, and excretion. Bioavailability of vitamins. Bioavailability is the rate at and the extent to which a nutrient is absorbed and used. Simply put, it's the amount absorbed and used by the body. Precursors. Compounds that can be converted into active vitamins. They also can be known as provitamins, although this isn't a term that I hear often. Basically, the precursor is converted to an active form of the vitamin in the body. For example, beta-carotene is a precursor for vitamin A. Organic. This means it's readily destroyed during processing. Prolonged heat, such as cooking, and ultraviolet light, maybe from the sun, can destroy vitamins. Toxicity. So too much can cause harm. Dose levels and effects. Scenario 1 says the more you have, the better it is. Rarely this works in real life. Scenario 2, or the middle one, as you get more, the benefit reaches a maximum and then plateaus, becoming no better with higher doses. Scenario 3 on the far right, as you progress, the effect reaches an optimum level, then declines. So more is better up to a certain point, and then it becomes harmful. Too much can be just as harmful as too little for most nutrients. Please pause this presentation momentarily and see if you can answer the questions appropriately. So A, precursors, matches with C, inactive forms that are converted to active forms, as well as D, beta-carotene. B, solubility, matches with A, affects absorption, transport, storage, and excretion. C, organic, goes with B, readily destroyed. And then D, toxicity, matches with E, adverse effects in high doses, uses UL. The B vitamins. B vitamins help body use macronutrients for fuel. Remember, B vitamins do not provide energy themselves, but do help release it from carbohydrates, proteins, and fat. Coenzymes assist enzymes with energy release. Coenzymes work with enzymes to facilitate the enzyme's activity. Some B vitamins form parts of coenzymes. RDAs, we've touched on this in the past, these are set to meet the needs of about 98% of the population. Adequate intake, also have seen in the past. Recommendation based on average amount of a nutrient that a group of healthy people consumes. Adequate intake is used when there is not enough information to set an RDA. And lastly, also have seen this one before as well, tolerable upper intake levels, or UL. This is the highest amount that appears safe for regular consumption. Only niacin, vitamin B6, folate, choline, and vitamin C have a UL. True or false? B vitamins give us energy. Again, this is going to be false. B vitamins play a role in releasing energy. They do not provide energy themselves. Thiamine. Essentially, thiamine is the vitamin part of the coenzyme TPP that assists in energy metabolism. TPP participates in the conversion of pyruvate to acetyl-CoA. Thiamine recommendations. The U.S. intake generally meets or exceeds recommendations. If you eat enough to meet your energy needs, you're likely going to consume enough thiamine. Deficiency. You are at risk if you do not eat enough calories or consume mostly empty calories. As far as alcohol, alcohol disrupts thiamine absorption and promotes excretion, which doubles the risk of deficiency in those who suffer from alcoholism. You have dry berry, and wet berry. So dry berry causes damage to the nervous system and is characterized by muscle weakness in the arms and legs. Wet berry damages the cardiovascular system and is characterized by edema. And these are issues caused by deficiency of thiamine. There is no upper limit. No adverse effects have been seen, so no UL has been set. When it comes to deficiency in berry, typically you can see both types, both the dry and the wet, but one set of symptoms tends to be predominant. Thiamine food sources. So you can look at the list here. Many of these aren't necessarily great sources of thiamine, but most foods do provide some. So eating lots of different foods will help meet your needs. Please pause this presentation momentarily to see if you can answer the questions appropriately. Assists in energy metabolism. And number 2, assists in the conversion of pyruvate to acetyl-CoA. And that's thiamine that does this. Please pause this presentation as well to see if you can answer the questions. Thiamine deficiency is a disease. The thiamine deficiency disease is called beriberi. There are 2 forms. dry beriberi, which affects the nervous system, and then you have wet beriberi, which affects the cardiovascular system. Moving on to riboflavin. Riboflavin serves as a coenzyme in energy metabolism. The coenzymes forms of riboflavin are flavin mononucleotide and flavin adenine dinucleotide. As for recommendations, most people in the United States either meet or exceed their needs. Deficiency causes inflammation of membranes. It can be inflammation of membranes of your mouth, skin, eyes, and GI tract. Toxicity, no harm has been seen with excess intake, therefore there is no UL. And the biggest sources of riboflavin include milk and milk products, whole grains, and enriched grains. Some fast facts. Nutritional yeast is a good source of riboflavin. Milk is also a good source of riboflavin. Riboflavin is sensitive to ultraviolet light, but it is not destroyed by cooking. Riboflavin in selected foods. Vegans and those who don't drink milk must rely on ample servings of dark greens and enriched grains for riboflavin. Niacin. Niacin has two chemical structures, nicotinic acid and nicotinamide. Nicotinamide is the major form of niacin in blood. For our purposes, we're just going to call it niacin. Recommendations. The body can synthesize niacin from tryptophan. Vitamin B6 helps with this conversion. Niacin equivalents, or NE. Niacin recommendations are stated in niacin equivalents because the body can synthesize niacin from the amino acid tryptophan. Approximately 60 milligrams of tryptophan makes 1 milligram of niacin. So a food with 60 milligrams of tryptophan and 1 milligram of niacin has 2 niacin equivalents. Niacin deficiency, known as pellagra, and is characterized by the 4Ds. 4Ds standing for diarrhea, dermatitis, dementia, and eventual death. The image on the right you can see is an example of dermatitis. Toxicity. You can have physiological effects or pharmacological effects. So, for example, when a normal dose of a nutrient provides a normal blood concentration, the nutrient is having a physiological effect. When large doses or supplements overwhelm the body and raise blood concentrations, the nutrient acts like a drug and has a pharmacologic effect. Niacin flush is an example of a pharmacologic effect where it dilates the capillaries and causes a tingling sensation, which can be painful. Sources include meat, poultry, fish, legumes, enriched and whole grains. Here you can see niacin in selected foods. Moving on to biotin. Biotin is a coenzyme in metabolism. Adequate intake is 30 micrograms per day. No RDA has been set, as biotin is needed in very small amounts. Sources are widespread in food and produced by GI bacteria. Examples of food sources include liver, egg yolks, soybeans, fish, and whole grains. No UL has been set because there are no reported adverse effects on high biotin intakes. Pantothenic acid. It's part of the chemical structure of coenzyme A. Adequate intake is about 5 milligrams per day, and it reflects the amount needed to replace daily losses. Deficiency is rare. Symptoms involve a general failure of all the body's systems and include fatigue, GI distress, and neurological disturbances. No UL due to no reported toxic effects. Sources are widespread in foods and include beef, poultry, whole grains, potatoes, tomatoes, and broccoli. Vitamin B6. Vitamin B6 is stored in muscle tissue. Unlike other water-soluble vitamins, B6 is extensively stored in muscle tissue. Recommendations: the RDA for vitamin B6 is based on the amount needed to maintain adequate levels of coenzymes. Deficiency. Synthesis of key neurotransmitters diminish and abnormal compounds from tryptophan metabolism accumulate in the brain, which can lead to depression and confusion, abnormal brain waves, and convulsions. Toxicity. Consuming greater than 2 grams daily for 2 months or more, that would be 20 times the upper limit, and this can cause neurological damage. Food sources includes meats, fish, and poultry, potatoes, legumes, fortified cereals, and non-citrus fruits. Eating a wide variety of foods can help meet your vitamin B6 needs. Folate, also known as folacin or folic acid. Folate can be reabsorbed, and this is because the liver incorporates excess folate into bile that is then sent to the gallbladder and GI tract. Recommendations: dietary folate equivalents, or DFE. It's the amount of folate available to the body, accounting for bioavailability of the source. You have naturally occurring folate, which is less bioavailable. And then you have synthetic folate from fortified foods and supplements, and those are more bioavailable. On average, folate from fortified foods and supplements is 1.7 times more available than naturally occurring folate. True or false? Synthetic folate from supplements and fortified foods is more bioavailable than naturally occurring folate. Answer is A, true. Effects of folate deficiency. Neural tube defects. The brain and spinal cord develop from the neural tube, and without adequate folate in the early weeks of pregnancy, it can lead to various central nervous system disorders and death. It's important for women to supplement 1 month before conception and continue throughout the first trimester to prevent neural tube defects. Folate supplementation should start prior to conception and throughout the first trimester because neural tube defects occur early in development, even before women sometimes realize that they're pregnant. Fortification of foods has dramatically lowered the rate of neural tube defects by improving folate status in women. Example of fortified foods include the fortified grain products. As for folate and heart disease, folate breaks down homocysteine, which may have a protective role against heart disease. This is because homocysteine accumulation can enhance formation of blood clots. Other facts about folate. Deficiency impairs cell division and protein synthesis, which are critical to growing tissue. Replacement of red blood cells and GI tract cells falters. Signs of deficiency include anemia and GI tract deterioration. Toxicity is 1,000 micrograms per day. High doses can obscure vitamin B12 deficiency. And food sources include dark green leafy vegetables, legumes, seeds, and liver. Vitamin B12. B12 and folate depend on each other for activation. Vitamin B12 binds with intrinsic factor and travels from the stomach to the small intestine where it is recognized and absorbed. Intrinsic factor is a stomach secretion. Vitamin B12 must bind with it, otherwise the cells will not recognize B12 for absorption. Functions of vitamin B12 include maintaining nerve cells, helping break down some fatty acids and amino acids. Recommendation: the RDA is 2.4 micrograms per day. Vitamin B12 deficiency is usually related to inadequate absorption, not poor PO intake. Inadequate absorption can be related to a lack of hydrochloric acid, which releases the vitamin from the food, or related to a lack of intrinsic factor, and then the vitamin is not absorbed. Pernicious anemia. This reflects a B12 deficiency caused by a lack of intrinsic factor. Symptoms include muscle weakness and neurological damage. Toxicity. No adverse effects reported, therefore no UL. Food sources are almost exclusively in foods derived from animals. So meats, fish, poultry, cheese, eggs, and then fortified cereals. The greatest bioavailability is in fish and milk. Vegans do require fortified soy milk or supplementation, otherwise they are at risk for deficiency. Please pause this presentation momentarily to see if you can answer the questions appropriately. Number 1. Most B12 deficiency is due to inadequate absorption. Number 2. Deficiency caused by a lack of intrinsic factor can lead to pernicious anemia. Number 3. Without intrinsic factor, the vitamin cannot be absorbed. Again, please pause this presentation momentarily to see if you can answer the questions appropriately. Vitamin B12 is primarily found in foods of animal origin. Number 2, vitamin B12 is required to activate folate. Moving on to choline. Choline is an essential nutrient, not technically a vitamin, but it is commonly grouped with B vitamins. It's used to make lecithin and acetylcholine. Choline supports neurological development during pregnancy and may improve cognition into adulthood. Adequate intake for men is 550 milligrams per day. Women, it's 425 milligrams per day. The body can make choline from the amino acid methionine, but dietary choline is needed to meet the needs. Deficiency is not fully understood. Average choline intake falls below the adequate intake, but the impact of deficiencies are not fully understood. Common sources include milk, eggs, and peanuts. This is a summary slide for your B vitamins. Each B vitamin coenzyme is involved in energy metabolism. They help facilitate the work of the cells and work in carbohydrate, protein, and fat metabolism. Deficiencies. Single B vitamin deficiency is rare. Often B vitamin deficiencies coexist. Typical populations include those who are elderly, vegetarians, and those who suffer from alcoholism, heart failure, or recent bariatric surgery. Toxicities. Toxicities occur with supplementation, not through food. Excess gets eliminated through urine excretion. If overloaded, it may not be able to keep up with the excessive amounts from supplements. Food sources, so the grains help provide niacin, riboflavin, and folate. Fruits and vegetables provide folate. Protein foods are sources of thiamine, niacin, vitamin B6, and vitamin B12. Milk is a good source of riboflavin and vitamin B12. So, a balanced diet that offers a variety of foods from each food group can provide ample B vitamins. Vitamin C. This is another water-soluble vitamin. The roles include a cofactor, so it helps specific enzymes perform their jobs. It also works as an antioxidant, so it defends against free radicals, and which helps prevent damage, and it protects against oxidative stress. Antioxidants, antioxidants are substances that significantly decrease the adverse effects of free radicals on normal physiological functions. Vitamin C is a cofactor in collagen formation, so it helps form collagen. And collagen helps tissues grow back together after an injury or a wound. It also helps with the development of bones and teeth. Cofactor in other reactions, hydroxylation of carnitine, which transports fatty acids across membranes, converts the amino acid tryptophan and tyrosine to serotonin and norepinephrine, respectively, and it makes hormones. So, thyroxine regulates metabolic rate. When metabolism speeds up in times of extreme physical stress, the body's use of vitamin C increases. Other roles, so stress increases vitamin C needs. Infections, burns, extremely high or low temperatures, chronic use of certain medications will increase the body's need for vitamin C. As for the prevention and treatment of the common cold, research has been controversial. Some research shows benefits, others do not, but there is potential for slight reduction in cold duration and severity. Please pause this presentation and try to answer the questions. Number one, vitamin C loses electrons easily, allowing it to perform as an antioxidant. Number two, antioxidants are protective against free radicals. Number three, vitamin C protects cells and tissues from these unstable molecules that can cause oxidative stress, which plays a role in disease development. Vitamin C intake. The RDA for men is 90 milligrams per day and for women 75 milligrams per day. Smokers need about 35 more milligrams per day. Smoking increases the need due to increased oxidants, and it affects both active and passive smokers. 10 milligrams prevents overt symptoms of scurvy. The absorption maximum of vitamin C is 200 milligrams. So at about 200 milligrams, absorption reaches its max and any excess vitamin C is excreted. Vitamin C deficiency. Two notable signs of deficiency. Your gums bleed easily around the teeth and capillaries under the skin break spontaneously, producing pinpoint hemorrhages. So on the left, you see the scorbutic gums, and on the right, the pinpoint hemorrhages. Vitamin C toxicity. Supplementation can lead to too much vitamin C and therefore lead to GI distress like diarrhea. Excessive amounts can obscure results of urine tests used to detect glucose or ketones, can provide both a false positive or a false negative result. Excessive intake can lead to kidney stones if you have kidney disease or a tendency towards gout. The UL for adults is 2,000 milligrams per day. Food sources of vitamin C. Vitamin C is abundant in fruits and vegetables. Some quick examples include oranges, potatoes, and salads. Vitamin C is vulnerable to destruction by heat and oxygen, and sometimes it's used as an antioxidant by food manufacturers. So sometimes they'll add vitamin C to certain beverages and cured meats to prevent oxidation and spoilage. This vitamin C will help preserve a food, but it doesn't have the same activity in the body. And here is a chart with the vitamin C contents in foods. And the next few slides are going to have quiz type questions, and that's how we'll wrap up this chapter. So the first question is true or false. The overconsumption of water-soluble vitamins cannot cause side effects because of their solubility. The answer is false. Number 2, strict vegetarians are most at risk for deficiency of which vitamin? A, biotin, B, folic acid, C, vitamin B12, or D, vitamin C? Answer is C, vitamin B12. Number 3, which water-soluble vitamin plays the biggest role in controlling homocysteine levels? A, pyridoxine, B, folate, C, biotin, or D, pantothenic acid? The answer is B, folate. Number 4, true or false? Beriberi occurs as a result of thiamine deficiency. This answer is true. And lastly, number 5, which vitamin is correctly matched with its description? A, biotin. Deficiency can lead to neural tube defects in infants. Is it B, folic acid, made in intestinal bacteria? C, ascorbic acid. Deficiency is known to occur with alcoholism. D, niacin. Overconsumption can lead to increased incidence of kidney stones. Or E, riboflavin. Deficiency can lead to cracks around the mouth. The answer is E, riboflavin. Deficiency of riboflavin can lead to cracks around the mouth. And this is the answer key for the last 5 questions. This concludes Chapter 10.